Well, hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear us. We are safe in Jerusalem. We had an active week today, so, or not today, but this week, with all the bombings going off. Sometimes, I think one day it was like 3 times in one day. So um, we are safe and we're truly blessed to be here and knowing that God has kept his protection power over us and he has definitely, you know, heard many prayers that has went up for our safety, and we're not scared. Obviously, we wouldn't be here if we was terrified. But we lived in Mexico long enough that it really doesn't bother us. So, but I just thank God that we're blessed to see another day that was not promised to us. And I look online and I see all the horrific car accidents and deaths that's been going on that people have been posting on Facebook, and my heart truly breaks and goes out to those families that have been dealing with that situation. So while we're everyone's coming online, I just want to say that please click the like, subscribe, and the notification bell. And we have some books. If please check out our website, we have some books going up, and I'll put the link in the comments and also in the description below. Please, Mike has so graciously revamped it for us and applied some new information and some new videos. Probably most of everyone hasn't seen yet. So we also have a new series coming out. We're going to be, well, I'm not going to be teaching because I'm not a teacher. Um, they're going to be talking about Be Ye Holy and the things. If you hadn't got your copy of Be Ye Holy, uh, it's available in paperback, hardback, Kindle. It's available in all forms in different languages, at least a minimum of 13. So if you can read different languages, it's available there also. And it's also available in audiobook for those who don't like to read. So we're going to be doing some Be Ye Holy, and we'll be going through some of that and a lot of different information that pertains to that. Kind of most people don't really know how Be Ye Holy came into effect and the journey that it took to get to that information. So, and it was a journey. It's been a long journey. And we are so glad that it's available for everyone. If you can get your hand on a copy, great. So why everybody's coming? Hello, Kathy, Mike, everyone who's coming online. We appreciate everyone. We had a service before service, a class before class, so we are starting a little bit late. But you know, it's late on our side, early on your side. How about that? So thank you for joining us once again. Please click the like, the subscribe, and the notification bell for future videos and future information. And also, if you have not checked out, any current events or stuff that's happening here or wherever in the world, we do post those also on the website. The link is available in the comments and also on the description. So thank you for joining us, and we're going to turn it over to our Team Text J.
I don't know, Julian. She makes my day. I'm sure she makes yours. Or does she make your life?
Be careful what you say live. It will be used against you.
Because we know you can see us and hear us. Got it? Earlier this week, we had a meeting, you and I, and very seldom do you call me. I generally text you or call you because the hours are so crazy. But you had made the suggestion that I really come in and start teaching Be Ye Holy. And I've been talking about that for a very long time. And I guess you could say I was waiting for God to make the big explosion on the earth, not from rockets, to begin to do that. But I think that what we're going to do now is just go ahead and do the preparatory for those who in the future will already have material when they realize that they need to turn to God. And so what prompted you to ask me to go ahead and teach Be Ye Holy?
Well, obviously, Be Ye Holy was a book that was given to you by God, and well, the information in it. To me, it's crucial that people get this information and really get in their heads that the state we're in, as far as the world's concerned, the stuff that's going on in the world, and the stuff that Satan uses, the devices that he uses to entrap people. And to me, it's just the timing thing that it's time for people to start really realizing with the state we're in and the devices being used against us, and just expose them for what they are.
I know that when I thought about this, I told you we needed to start from the very beginning. How did Be Ye Holy come around, and why did I name it that way? The scripture said, Be ye holy, for I am holy. And at first, I didn't give it a title because I was doing research. But what prompted me to do the research? I've told this story before, but since we're doing this now for future people who's going to be joining and seeing what's happening on, I'm going to tell you what happened. I was in my church in Arlington on Abram Street, and we had visited a couple of large churches, and several had wanted me to be their daughter work. But that really didn't mean anything. It was just a term that said, if you need anything, call. But I've pretty well been independent, would do it on my own. This one particular night, a gentleman from the larger church came and brought a friend with him to our service. Now, from the beginning, when I started the church when I was 33 and a half, I sought to do only what God directed me to do. And I had a lot of obstacles that I had to overcome because it was during a time when women were really spoken negatively if they were in a pulpit, and especially if they were a pastor. And so for the first 2 years of me pastoring, I would not allow anybody tell anyone that I was a pastor. So even today, a lot of people just call me she, her, or whatever. They don't really call me by my name because my name is not important, but his is. And so this man came and wanted me to come next door, and I declined at the beginning, and I finally went. And this man, the Lord revealed to me who he was, not necessarily his profession, but the spirit he was of. And my first question to him was, what are you doing in my church? You see, I had fought demonic spirits, dealt with witchcraft and the occult for many years. The whole time that I have pastored a group of people from various walks of life. I have had the occult be at my front door of the church, try to do casting of spells. I've seen the demonic possessed set free. These things are real. It's not something you really want to deal with. But I've seen that, and I knew it, and I knew the spirit of the people who that's about. So the first thing I said to the man is, what are you doing at my church? His friend, who was going to the larger assembly in Irving, looked at me as if he was shocked that I would start with that question. And I said, you mean to tell me you haven't told your friend what you do and what you're about? You see, people present themselves in one way, and behind the scenes, they're a lot different. So what you see is what you get is not true. There's always a facade that is in front of you. So a person might have a lot of charisma. They may have a lot of, things that you find remarkable and maybe attractive. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the core of the individual. So finally, I said, are you going to tell him, or am I going to tell him? So finally, the man said, well, I do something on the side. He worked for the Dallas Sheriff Police Department. He was a high up authority. And as he began to expand on some of the things he did, there was a comment that was made that I took as a challenge. And that's what really started my spiritual journey. And today we're going to talk to you about a spiritual journey. And he said, you know why I don't believe in your God? Because we have moved our devices into your homes, into your lives, and into your churches. And we have taken you captive, and you don't even know it. He said that with such authority. He made it be known. We're proud of what we've done. All of the people are going, I don't see nothing wrong with that, because the God of this world has blinded your eyes that you cannot see. It's very much the spiritual aspect of things, you haven't got the open door to understanding. And I said, if you're talking about the crystals, the potpourri, and I only named a couple of other things because I didn't know that much at the time. The only thing I had read and saw in a Christian bookstore was a book by Tex Mars. And I don't know if one of the team can provide the name of that book. But inside that book, it laid a foundation of what the New Age was and their device and wickedness. I didn't really know all that much because I had been skimming through the book and not really intently reading it for the content. I just thought, but he said, when he said that, I remember looking him straight in the face. And I said, I'm deaf and I am dumb and ignorant, but don't you ever put that to my God. He's tried to get through to us, but we just don't listen. It was at that point I said, I don't believe there's anything else that we have to discuss. I got up and I walked away. God's tried to get through to the people, but they don't listen. They don't want to see. They don't want to accept the direction that God's trying to give them. That next day, I said to Stacy, we're going to the University of Texas at Arlington. I'm going to find out what it is that got moved into our lives and into our families, what's taken us captive. So we loaded up our backpack, and in my backpack, I had my Bible, I had my concordance, I had my dictionary, I had paper and a pen, and I was headed off to the university. I had never done this before. And I wasn't sure what I was going to go find. I didn't know where to look except the few terms that I had read in that book, and I also took that book. When I got to the university and to the library, I put my head down on the desk and I began to say, God, lead me, guide me, let me know what happened. Where has this taken us? I don't know where to even start. And as I prayed, the next thing I knew is I got up and I just started looking through the library. It's a pretty large library at the University of Texas at Arlington. And books just started being brought to my attention, terms. And I started on a journey to find out what happened to us. Why did we not know? Why? Why had the preachers been silent? What had they done that blocked them from God, that blocked all of us from God? I had heard God was there and he was there and he was there and he was there when he never was. They were hoping he would be there. He was hoping that by your faith being ignited, God would come in. But you see, God won't come in where sin is. But I didn't fully understand that. The next thing I know, we got a group together and we started going over there almost every day. And at that time, University of Texas at Arlington allowed you to Xerox copies of books and whatever that you might be using for study. And we were literally walking out of the university with boxes and boxes of material. I was trying to go through so much, and it was difficult because some people would get the information and expect me to go through all of it, and it was virtually impossible. But I would skim through and see what it is that this was about. I needed to know for a fact. I never used one person's statement. I used a minimum of 8 authorities, and some which were encyclopedias, some were history books, but I wanted proof that what the person said was accurate. By the time I finished, I felt really inspired to contact James Kilgore. He was the district superintendent of the United Pentecostal Church, and at one point he had been my pastor. And I contacted him and told him I needed to see him. So Stacy and I took probably 8 Xerox boxes full of material to Brother Kilgore. And I remember, I don't think we unloaded all 8 boxes. Stacy probably would remember that. I don't know. But I remember that we had taken out at least 3 or 4 boxes. And I began to show him what God had revealed to me. And he shook his head. He was just dumbfounded. It was the answers to the questions that nobody knew, and everyone was afraid to ask. He looked at me at that point and he said, I want you to go write me a book. I'd always wanted to write a book, but I didn't ever do it. I really didn't think I would have the ability. And it was back in 95 this happened, and it was still typewriter stuff, and I was not very quick at typing. And I said, okay. And I remember these words as I got ready to walk out the door. He said, Sister Cheryl, follow God. And he said, wait a minute. You've always walked with God, and you've always followed him. Do whatever God leads you to do. But every chapter that you write in the book, send it to me. I'll send it to our editor. They can, adjust it and so forth. So I went back with the intent of exposing why we dressed the way we did, why we lived the way we did. I had no idea how this was going to be so explosive. It was not just about the fact we don't cut our hair, we don't wear jewelry, we don't wear makeup, we wear skirts or dresses, we don't go around with sleeveless clothes. It wasn't just about the look. It was about the meaning behind the transformation of what came from antiquity into present day at that time. The next thing I know, when I'd finished the chapters, I was down in Houston and we were correlating them. That meant we were printing out the pages, putting them in a cone binding, and Brother Kilgore paid for everything. And then he asked me to take it to General Conference, which was going to be, I think, in Des Moines that year. Gave us the money for us to take and go up there. Well, we knew that there would be obstacles. They would be met with opposition. But he asked me to do this. And Julian, listen to that. He asked me to take care of something, and I did. God asked me to bring his spirit to this country, to this world, and I will. When it was all said and done, those who were very evil tried to pull the book, but God had a plan, and that book went on anyway. By the time it was over, the copies that we had brought had all sold out in about 24 hours. That was without anybody's promotion. That was God doing it. We just wrote what the book was going to be about, a little story on a piece of paper, and Stacy and one of the other members I had at that time went around to all the different hotels, because it was a conference and there was a lot of people filled up in those hotels, and just slipped them under the doors. They told me to stay put and pray, and they would take care of all the rest. So without really advertisement, but a slip of paper, God did the work. So that book, it took off, and over 500,000 copies were distributed worldwide in approximately 2 or 3 years. And they wanted me to continue to write books. I wrote a couple of others, but nothing that had the impact that Be Ye Holy did. So when the book Be Ye Holy was written, it was so that we would know how to live unto him. Fast forward. My children have been after me for years. Mom, rewrite it and re-release it. I said, no. I don't know. I'm just very reluctant, because I remember what I went through in the first phase of it. But I thought, that book is so old and it's so antiquated with today's updates in our society. So I sat down, I believe it was November or December in 2024, and I started updating Be Ye Holy. So Be Ye Holy is now an updated version of what was first given in 1995. It has been put together in a way that it really addresses even today's issues. Now, I wanted to give you that background because when Julian and different ones have asked me to teach it, I don't think you realize what I'm going to be teaching you. I'm going to be teaching you how to deal with the powers of hell and how to walk with God. And if you don't walk with God, you certainly can't deal with the powers of hell. So the first class that we're teaching is today. We'll record another one tomorrow, possibly tomorrow and Monday, but they won't be released at the time. I'll just pay attention to what's going on here before I release them. But the first topic today is called spiritual journey. Now, Julian, I told you I was going to ask you this question yesterday when we were having our meeting. Tell me about your spiritual journey. How is it that you came to know God?
My first experience was when I was about 6, 7 years old. My parents were not really spiritual, not really were attend church per se. They would just go once in a while when they got invited, but they didn't really take us to church. And so, but my mom would invite some of the church people to come to our house, and they would just worship, and they would just read the Bible, and that's it. That's all they would do. I remember one day that, this happened multiple times, and one time I was watching them worship. Just they were all crying and everything, just worshiping God, and I can remember vividly that I just raised my head up and I said, God, I don't know anything about you, but one day I want to feel what they feel, and that's all I said that day. And I just didn't think about it. Years went by, we came to the States, and I just didn't think of it. Yeah, fast forward when I was about 23, 24 years old, that's when I had really a longing that there was something missing. There was something missing in my life that I needed. I didn't know what it was at the time, but there's something missing in my life. It just can't be what I'm doing right now. Just living life, meaningless life, and just going about my business. It can't be just that. But I can remember that every time I would go by the church, by your church, I knew it was a church at the time, but I would just, every time I would pass by, drive by, it would draw my attention. And I wouldn't think nothing of it, because I would just look at the building and I don't even know what that building is. But I had that longing, and it kept coming, and it kept growing and kept getting stronger. And finally, one day I walked in, and see, when it comes to God, there are no coincidence, because when I walked in that day, I know y'all were worshiping, and the song y'all were playing, that y'all were worshiping to, it was a song that said, when the Spirit of the Lord moves in me, I will dance like David, I'll move, stuff like that. That was part of the lyrics. And I can remember that when I said that, when I talked to God that day, when I was about 6, 7 years old, that was the song that they were worshiping to. And so when I walked in and I heard that, it magically triggered my mind what I said back then. And I was like, I'm home. I'm here.
So have you found that your journey has been interesting, to say the least?
To say the least. Yeah.
What do you think that you can tell people about a spiritual journey that we're going to expand on a little bit?
I have some notes here. The thing that I was seeking, because people could have goals, determinations, or they want something that they want to achieve in life, or stuff like that. But to me, those were not. That was not it. I was looking for something else, something that had really meaning in my life. What I didn't know at the time, that I was looking for God. That's what I was looking for. And obviously, when I got there, obviously I really got engrossed. I'm one type of person that if I'm really into it, if I'm really into something, if I want to, really go into something, I'm all in. And I just went all in. I wanted to learn who God was, what was it all about, and what was this experience, and everything about it. And I can remember that it took me about 2 years, bothering each and every day, almost for hours at a time, that, I wanted to get everything established in my mind about what the spiritual walk was. And here's the tricky part, because some people nowadays, when they say they were spiritual, but that spirituality they're talking about is not necessarily what I'm talking about. It's because nowadays, you can go into you can say you're searching for spirituality, but you can go into what we're going to talk about, New Age thinking, theories, or follow after different deities, different gurus, and stuff like that, which is a total different thing what I was searching for. My spiritual walk, that I was searching for, what had to do with God. And I wanted to know everything about God.
Now, when I made the term spiritual journey, used to, this was known as the New Age movement. But the New Age movement started having some negative connotations where people didn't really want to say that that's what they were into. So they called it their spiritual. Now, the term spiritual and religious are flip-flopped around. They are not the same thing. When you think of a spiritual journey, that could incorporate things like Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, paganism, occult. It can mean a lot of different things. I was never one who really wanted to be involved in works of darkness. I couldn't even stand anything that was scary. I wouldn't watch it because I just couldn't sense that I wanted to have that in my head. So when you hear someone say they're on a spiritual journey, the fact that every individual on the planet, regardless of who they are, has a longing to connect with something, someone, some God, some inner power, or should I say, some plug-in source. Like if I unplug this computer in front of me, its power will run for a little bit, but then it's going to be dead. So there were many types of spiritualism. I'm going to be teaching you and showing you how that these actions that I take personally and I live by is how come God walks with me and hears my prayers. Now, as we look at this, a spiritual journey can be individually. It can be nothing to do with denominations at all. So it's not like the Baptist, Presbyterian, Methodist, Church of Christ, any of these. It's about finding your own connection. And sometimes this is done through meditation, through yoga, and we're going to be getting into those topics on a more deep level as we go. But you're going to also understand that the reason I don't wear jewelry is because those symbols draw spirits of negativity and the demonic spirits to you by what you have on your ears, on your neck, on your fingers, etc. You don't realize you're inviting the powers of hell. The thing is, you don't know it, but they do. And again, I'm going to be showing you these things in the days that we continue to teach on Be Ye Holy. So when people say, oh, you don't wear jewelry, you don't like jewelry. No, I don't want any demonic spirit coming to mess with me. And because I don't, they don't. In the occult, I want you to understand this. What you are and who you are is written on your body as a billboard. And that action that you're doing is inviting spirits that you really don't want to deal with. It starts with a little simple thing, but then it gets into a more deeper part of this. So it's not just about the way I dress, but it's also the way I think and why I do the things I do. So in the course of this, I know that you're going to begin to get a greater and greater understanding. When people talk about their journey to find God, without the real connection with God, it's gloomy, it's dark, it's depressive. God is the one who makes the difference. He's the only one who makes the difference. So as we come through here, we're going to hear and see some things that will really be getting your attention along it. Julie, do you remember anything else? Let me go into this here. The meditation. We'll be bringing up why meditation is two different levels. One is occultic and one is unto God. You'll learn the different. You'll learn about the God of yourself and how you are making your decisions that do not align with God. So the New Age movement is a spiritual, I guess I'd say, life, but it incorporates many territories. It's a multifaceted area, and it's going to incorporate everything to do with the body, the mind, the soul, items, mindset, etc. So we want to understand what the New Age movement is. It is recognized by scholars, and many of your schools teach your children practicing New Age technology, or should I say, not necessarily technology, but techniques. They want your children from the early age to become occult and not see anything wrong with it. Have you heard people say, "Oh, I don't see anything wrong with that. That's just your opinion"? Well, as I said, no. When I started dealing with the occult and I actually talked to people who were practitioners of whether they be a coven or a single practitioner, they will tell you that the way that they can say if you're prepared for indoctrination is, what are you wearing? What signs are on your shirts? What clothing are you wearing? What jewelry do you have on? Because they can tell how receptive you're going to be by just how you dress. And that's how they pick and choose their disciples, if you want to put it that way. And it's very visual. I've talked to them that say, we can't touch you because you have this protection around you. I serve God. That's the only protection I ever need. I don't need anything else. So is there something else, Julian, that you want to point out on what the New Age movement is?
When you're talking about how they wanted to control the children from the beginning. I have some excerpts from the book from Tex Mars, Ravaged by the New Age. I talk on the part that says the new plan to take over our schools. It says the New Age invasion of our classroom is not accidental. It has been planned and systematically carried out by New Age educators. Their basic plan for conquest for schools is contained in the book Education in the New Age, written by Alice Bailey. The first published by Lucis Trust, formerly Lucifer Publishing Company, in 1954. That's about 71 years ago when this book was written. And another part says that children are the nation's future. Whoever controls their minds will determine the future. What will determine what the future will be is spiritually, economically, and no other ways. The social planners are keenly aware of this fact, and long-range plans have been underway for decades. These plans are being implemented with alarming speeds. Now, one of the things that you might not have thought about, especially living here in the United States, is when they took prayer out of school. That was part of it. See, these people are real patient. They have all the patience in the world that we don't have. They will implement one thing, not to have the fruition of it. Say, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. No, they do it long term. So it'll be implanted in your mind, and after you're indoctrinated into it, you accept it, you will just go along with it like nothing, like it was like second nature. So when they took prayer out of school in 1962, and then that generation is not affected by it because it was implemented this year. So that generation is not affected by it. It is the next generations. So I was looking at stats on crime statistics, and when it, around 1963 is when it was implemented. It was passed in 1962, 1963. 20 years later, around 20 years later, 83 to 85, the crime rate, it shoots up. There it is. You can see it on the screen. It just shoots up big time at that time. So these two generations afterwards, when the prayer was taken out of school, you can see the effects of it 20 years later, where it was just an explosion of crime, a crime wave that came in, and it never let up. It just kept going and kept going up to this time we're living at. It has kept going. So that was just a part of it, one part of it, and you can see the results of it. So now the other aspects will be the indoctrination of different beliefs.
That's very true. And as I said to you the other day, I was in school. I started school in 1961. I was in first grade. We were living on the reservation, so we didn't really have access to the city life was way out in the nowhere. And we started every school day. First of all, they'd say we're going to make the announcements, and there would be Pledge of Allegiance, prayer in school, and the 10 Commandments posted. And how we did the prayer in school was that we would say a prayer. We could do it quietly, but then we all read the 10 Commandments that were posted in the classroom. They were always posted there. So from the time of my first grade, I was experiencing that. When I went second, third, fourth, fifth started phasing out because we'd moved to town by then. And there was some essence of it, but there was no more prayer. There was Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, as far as not for prayer. I don't know what it was for, meditation probably. But by the time I got into the 6th grade, there was no prayer, no 10 Commandments, none of this. Now, here's the thing. In the correlation of this, they wanted you to become dependent upon drugs and alcohol. You see, there's never been a war on drugs and alcohol. That is Satan's device to take you captive. You must be involved in drugs and alcohol for you to behave in a completely treacherous, demonic spirit. Don't you understand? If he could take your mind through the drugs and the alcohol, he could control your life. Crime escalates. My son was murdered because of drugs and alcohol. This is a horrible thing. And all of you young people, you're going to go out and be on your own. You're grown. Grown does not mean stupid. Grown should be mature, able to take care of yourself financially, to know how to manage a budget, to make sure you've got income that covers your expenses, to make sure you live your life on a budget, not just get the dollar and throw it out the window. Maturity doesn't come with age. It comes with experience. This is very important. I saw what this world was going through with drugs and alcohol and never, ever took part of it because I wasn't going to be around the people who did those things. I wouldn't even go to a party. I didn't even want that experience of what that was. Because you see, to me, my mind was something I needed to protect. I didn't understand the depths of the spiritual aspect of it. But my mind, I need to protect. So one of the major important steps that we're going to be showing you in this text and stuff is the fact that the new age, new world order wants you on drugs and alcohol. They want you messed up. They want you to feel defeated and destroyed. They want you, they have to have you in that mindset. Because if you have a brain and have a power of reasoning and understand the things of God, you'll never touch drugs and alcohol. And if you do, you'd be so ashamed that you ever did. I've seen some really stupid things done under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Now that brings us to another aspect of this, which is called the power of influence.
I want to, go ahead. I was going to insert something, but go ahead. I know going back to what Julian was saying, you know, how when they took the prayer out of school, well, I wouldn't even thought of at that point because I'm not that old. But I know back when I was in high school in say 94, 95, they gave you this like huge book, which I never brought home, but huge book, and they called it literature. And the literature, and it was all mythology. I mean, it had everything from Greek mythology to, every mythology you can think of. It was a big book, and I never brought it home. I always left it in my locker because I figure I can glance, speed read through it and I'll ace the test regardless. But, that I think when they did that and they got kids to start accepting different religions and stuff like that, that made an impact also in my generation. I can't now this current generation, oh my, but in my generation, it made an impact because then they did start picking up different beliefs, and yoga came into play really, really strong. And at that point, meditation, going to meditation retreats and stuff like that. It amazes me how now, present day, that kids as young as 5 or younger they can choose what gender they want to be, but they can't choose, you know, whether they go to bed, whether they go to bed on time or different things, stuff like that. They're enforcing this pick your gender and throwing it all up in their faces and stuff like that. And it's a sad situation because it totally destroyed our world and the generations that came after me. Um, when I was growing up, we used to go out and play. People don't do that. They just stay at home and play on the computer or gaming device, phones or whatever. And people stop socializing now, and the rate of suicide has jumped astronomically, you know, because people don't socialize. You didn't have that. But I didn't have that in my day. You didn't hardly ever hear people committing suicide or depression or anxiety, bipolar, all these new ailments that they came up with. They now have a whole list of it and a whole genre of them. So I thought that was interesting, how you don't see it at that time, but then as you get older, you see the impact that they did. They're very patient, very, very patient. So not to cut you off, but I was inserting that.
No, that's important that you brought that up. It's very important that you brought that up. Because of the fact, if you're in my age bracket, you've seen a lot of transitions through life, a lot. And it's strange. It just seemed like it was there, but it was very gradual, very slow. I saw a change in the churches. I saw the change in the Christian faith, where we used to say you don't drink wine, alcohol, or do these things. You don't go to parties and dances, etc. Now we've got a Christian rock church, rock club. I just got that sent to me by my friend Catherine. She said, now, did you know Dallas has a Christian rock club? And I thought, doesn't surprise me because they can't keep the interest of the young people. They don't have a draw to bring them. So they've got to create a draw, something that would get their attention, because they can't continue to pay for these massive buildings if they don't have any people showing up. It's not on spirituality anymore. It's on popularity. And when I look at this, I have to say there's a lot of influence in our lives that when I was growing up, we didn't have that. We had very few selective friends because, as I said, I lived on the Navajo reservation, and that was the first 10 years of my life. And we didn't have but a couple of families my parents would interact with. That was it through those first years of my life. And then we branched out when my dad became a corporate jet pilot. Obviously, our social circle started changing, and so did the behavior. And I could never understand it. I couldn't understand why they thought it had such a great time whenever they're drinking so much they're going to be hugging a commode in the morning or have a terrible headache. I mean, be in horrible physical pain because they're taking in ethanol, and ethanol is a poison. And the poison destroys different parts of your body. At the time, you don't realize it. And I used to say when my mother drank so heavy, all you're doing is drinking another cup of depression. You're not getting anything from it. Oh, I got a buzz. Well, that buzz becomes what? Becomes an illness, becomes sick, physically destructive. But the powers of influence that we have now in our lives, you have social media, you've got all the different YouTube channels, you've got everything blasting you at an unbelievable rate of speed to try to condition your mind for acceptance. Now, you've got to accept all people, whatever race, creed, color, gender, etc., whatever they are, whoever they are. And Julian just sent me earlier a link to a video, and I'm going to try to get it and put it to our channel, our webpage, about how they're all uniting as one religion. We are not all one religion. There's different backgrounds, different faiths, and different leaderships, and said for different situations. I would like to insert here, because many of you won't have access to some of these books because they're at least 30 years old. I found the one that they showed, and if you'll put that back up there, the screen for Ravaging the New Age, or the, not the New Age, that part, when the one you just showed earlier, got two on my head, the one with the New Age word on it. If you will contact us through our email, life@yahoo.com. That one, Dark Secrets of the New Age. I will send you a PDF copy of this free of charge. It is available online for free, but in order for you to have it play where you can understand and hear it, it has to be put in a little different format. It has to be put in a Word document. If you have Microsoft Word, I will send you both the Microsoft Word and the PDF, because I spent over 12 hours cleaning it up so people could listen. As I said, this is a book that's not available. You can possibly find it in old bookstores and maybe online, but it's quite expensive. When it's free online, I figured it might as well be given out to you. So if you want to know what some of the things are, then just contact us at atlife, L-I-F-E, at yahoo.com. And we will provide you with this book, and you're going to be surprised and shocked. Now, I will say this was written by a Christian who I did not oppose, and I believe that the principles of Christianity, as far as good character and moral principles, are really important to our life. I just want to say this. I do not believe that Jesus is God. I've already placed my position on that. I'll teach that at one point, but it's not going to be right now. Just be sure that you know that we want to provide you with information. If you would like a copy of the documents that we have in front of us, it's about 8 or so of them, then make a note that you would like a copy of that material also, and we will provide it for you. I don't want you to think that we're going to just tell you things and you don't have a way to check it. And please, by all means, do your own research. Prove me wrong. Take this and tear it upside down, and otherwise embrace it and understand we're in a big mess as a world, as a nation, and as a people. Our next part that we were going into is called the power of influence. Now, Julian, this is going to be a little longer document than I originally had set to pace, because I didn't want these videos to be over a certain period of length of time. So I think we'll just move the power of influence over to tomorrow. So on your scheduling, we're going to put the power of influence, and then we're going to talk about fact versus theory. You're not going to want to miss any of these classes, because I'm going to teach you how we walk and serve God that pleases Him. Extremely important that we understand that God does have guidelines, and these guidelines are critical for your spiritual relationship with Him. We can't just be religious, meaning that someone has a religion they follow. We need to follow God. What does God want in our life? We're seeing in just this first part of talking about a spiritual journey, although we've really technically only covered 2 articles. And again, tell us what you would like. If you want what would be today's class, then say, class, we'll even include the ones we didn't get to today. But you need to make sure that you notify us that you would like those things, so that you yourself can read along and see what these items are. Don't hesitate to look up the terms, look up what these things look like. It's very hard to do this when you're doing a broadcast and you don't have graphics department behind you providing all the images that are necessary. But we do the best we can with what we have. So remember, many times when you're attacked by the powers of hell, and it comes through the personage of an individual. The individual will attack you vocally in every other way. But you've got to be strong in your mind and determined that you will be kind, show them the Lord's mercy, instruct them in the ways of God, but don't engage in a long-term friendship or relationship unless there's progress made and both of you begin to talk about God. I am very limited about friends I have outside of a specific group, and I remain that way. I don't want to be influenced or have a lot of garbage thrown at me. So again, this is the beginning of those classes that we're going to teach you. Now, I can't tell you how you can get in on the first service because the first service is before this one. And because of YouTube and not being able to play music and do things like this, we've just got to where we have it for a select group of people that they're able to be in that first service. If you will include in your email the fact that you would like to be into the first service, we'll try to figure out how to do that. We may have to do that through our website, and that may be the best way. I just don't know that our website is set up for that yet. But if you don't know what the website is, it's Cheryl-Remington.com. On that site, Mike did a wonderful job in revamping it. You will find the books that have been written, Be Ye Holy, and as Stacy stated, in many languages. But you'll see the books that have been written by Beau Charles, Philippe Giovante, and Stacy Rocha. They're all different parts of life. They're completely different, but yet unique. And yet they do minister to people. So even though this is not a commercial, it's just saying, go on there and see. They are available, most of the books, in ebook, audiobook, paperback, and hardback. I don't think there's anything else that I can remember. So if you just want to hear a book, go to the audiobooks. They are available in Barnes & Noble, and if you Google, you'll find these books with the audio. They'll give you the collection to it. Stacy found out, and Stacy, you can talk about Hoopla, I think is what it was, is where you found the audiobooks, and you can check them out through your local library.
Yeah, I'm not for sure if it's available through all libraries. I know in the city of Grand Prairie or Dallas area, it is available. So, but you can also purchase the audio through various Spotify and all of that. It's been distributed.
Yes, our audiobooks are being distributed by another company, and so I can't tell you where they are all at, to put it that way. But yes, you can get the audiobooks in Be Ye Holy. Every one of them have the English and Spanish audiobooks and another couple of languages. When you get to Fighting Hell, I think it's in 5 languages. So as you need a specific language, I want you to be aware of the fact that we will provide that. Again, you're going to have to correspond through our email, and I think that's even got an email connection on our website. But if you're needing a language that is not provided, then let us know. And if we can't do anything else but get you the PDF that you can read it, great. There are some places and some languages that Amazon does not support and other places do. Right now we're working through Amazon. So, and like she said, Spotify and the other venues, as I said, they provided me with about 15 places that the audiobooks can be heard and played. I just don't have those available in front of me to tell you. But if you look up the names, Cheryl Remington, Beau Charles, Philippe Giovante, and Stacy Rocha, those are the 5 authors that's in under the umbrella of Remington Publishing. So there's a lot of different aspects that you're going to find interesting. There will be at least 2, if not 3 other books to be released, possibly in the next 30 to 45 days. They're not released yet, but they're getting into final stages. We want you to have material that will encourage you and inspire you to do what's right and to honor and serve God. So everything needs to be corresponded through our email or our website. Mike, you were on part of that website. Do we have a link to our email on the website? Is that how that's read? You can tell Julian can tell me. Okay, so when you click on the website, it'll do an email. And also, if you have questions that you would like for us to address, please submit those. If it's in our timeline, we will be addressing those. Eventually, if it's something we've already talked about, we will provide for you the best information. We don't want you to be without the ammo in your hands to fight the adversary. So very important that you correspond with us. You write your questions down, you submit them to us. Stacy and our team will go through them and make sure that we've got them lined up. And if possible, we will answer them in the very next live service that we have. Now, in these classes, some of them will be pre-recorded. We'll have someone available online while this is happening who could answer your questions because it's going to be pre-recorded. Okay, Mike just put down the authors of who I just mentioned in the chat. So please, get the information. It's a lot of work and effort that we've gone to provide you with the knowledge that you need to know how to navigate through the storm. I don't know of anything else because we're going to take that next portion tomorrow. Again, I don't believe we're going to be doing this live. If we do, I'll be shocked. But if we do, okay, fine. We'll figure it out as we go. Is there anything else, Julian, that you feel that we want to talk about in these two topics?
Yes, I believe it does. I believe it does have a link. You click on it and then it automatically pulls up.
On the books that Tex Mars wrote, he referenced this person a lot, which is Alice Bailey. And I have some experts from her book, The Education of the New Age, that outlines how they indoctrinate the people, how they're going to do it. And you can see this today. I mean, because I don't know if you ever heard the term back in the day when they had a think globally, but act locally. So that was a term that was used back in the day a lot. And what it was referencing is this right here, was on her book. It says this is how they did. The following sequence suggests itself as we consider the curriculum to be planned for the youth of the immediate generations. So it breaks it down in 3 sections: ages 1 through 14, ages 14 to 21, and ages 21 to 28. On the primary education 1 through 14, which is a general racial development, it's the path of purification. The secondary education, which are cultural ages 14 to 21, that's a training of intelligentsia, which is the path of discipleship. And then the higher education, spiritual ages 21 to 28, that's the path of initiation. So they had this outline all the way from the beginning, and they just implemented it. And obviously her books and everything, they were pushed by the United Nations, her publishing company and everything. So they're all in cahoots. They put it all together and they just laid it out.
And once again, those books are available online in a PDF form. We chased them down. It took some effort. But these books, when it first got started for Alice Bailey, I think she did 24 or 26 books. I don't remember the exact number. And they were first under the League of Nations. Now, eventually, the League of Nations was dissolved. First, let me go back a second. It was under Goodwill, then became the League of Nations, and eventually was incorporated into the United Nations. And the United Nations became a global situation. And so all of these ideas from the beginning of our children, indoctrinate them as early as they could, now ages of 3 and 4 to go to pre-K, and up until graduation from college, they will destroy faith. The whole idea was to break down whatever truth was given through your family narrative or foundation. This is why you'll find many people who go to college are not book smart. They're really very stupid. And don't mean to say that to be hurtful, but they can pass a test, but they can't take a simple question and answer that has to do with everyday life. So the whole idea of pushing college is by the time you finish the college or university, you do no longer believe in God. That was the objective. And that's what we have, generation after generation after generation. When I graduated in 1972, I graduated a year early. I wanted to go to a Bible college, but I found out much later in life, they don't teach you what you need to know about the Bible. They indoctrinate you into their faith, which again is not what you're getting taught here. You're going to be taught exactly what God expects of us. So once again, I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but you asked for it, Julian. So we're doing it. The Alice Bailey books are available online as a PDF. If you do not know how to search that out, hello, Mike. I'm going to have Mike and Jennifer work together with the emails instead of Stacy, because Stacy's in a different time zone, so I'm going to change that. And they will help respond to the questions that you have or the material that you're asking for. They will get your email address and make sure that you're responded to as quickly as possible. We want you to be knowledgeable and equipped for what we're facing in this world. When it says a closing thought, when you look at the wars around the world over a long period of time, there was one purpose of the war. That was to break down the people in that country, to get them to conform to an ideology. It wasn't about justice and right. We're here in Jerusalem, and rockets leave Jerusalem to go to other countries. They come into Jerusalem, being fired at. Those rockets are not designated Palestinian or Jew or Christian or anything. Whatever and wherever that rocket lands is what it affects. So the wars that are going on have nothing to do with what is right for people, what is just for people, and how does God view it. None of these wars support the ideology of God. None of these wars are for anything but one general goal, and that's to break us all, that we don't have a will, and that we will conform to whatever is dictated to us. Be careful. Our news is not accurate. We'll get in that tomorrow. None of our news is accurate. And sometimes I really am hesitant to watch some videos because I have to question where they got their material and their accuracy. Do not believe everything you hear, and even question me. Perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with it. But let's focus our attention on God and pleasing Him. That's all that I have to say. Unless you guys spark another statement, then I would have to say more, but whatever you...
You know, I understand one thing, that especially if you try to research Alice Bailey, all this information she got was from a demon, which she called her ascended master. But it was basically a demon talking to her and giving her this information. So I understand that if you go into her books and you research her, all her stuff came from demons.
Well, Stacy, I went a little over an hour, and that was not my plan, but I think it was a good information.
Once again, we thank you for joining us, and a lot of information that you can glean for today's class. And we will be posting more information and more videos on our website and also on our YouTube channels and our social media channels. So please click the like, subscribe, and the notification bell. We hope you have a great day. Shabbat Shalom. See you next time.